It is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. I'm Jerry Usher along with Debbie Georgiani. And we're going to have I think a wonderful conversation today. It is Black History Month. It's winding down. Just got a few days to go. An extra day this year because it's a leap year. And Debbie, we are going to have in a moment Gloria Purvis on with us. She is with Brian Patrick on Morning Glory, that show that airs a little earlier than I'm usually up. I would love to listen to the show, but we're gonna talk about Black Catholics and the experience of those who are Black in the Catholic Church. So if anyone is listening, if you are a Black Catholic and you're involved in your parish, pro-life work, any sort of active participation in the Catholic Church, we want to hear about your experience today.
We sure do, and we're so happy Gloria is going to be with us for the entire hour. She is amazing. She is just so dynamic to listen to, and she just, I could listen to her all day long. Jerry, I am one of the ones who gets up early and listens to the show because I get up bright and early, and you know what? It's fabulous to start the day, and Gloria is going to just be a great addition to Take Two. So we want to go ahead and have you call in because remember, you drive the show. Okay, so dear listeners, please remember that. This is your show. You need to take the discussion where you want to take it. We're going to go along with it and develop it with you. And so hopefully when we leave this hour, we're changed just a little bit for the better. Can we do that? But we're going to need you. 1-800-585-9396. That's the number to dial. Don't forget, when you talk to Matt Gabinski, you're going to be waiting on hold, but you get to listen to the show live, so you're not going to miss a thing. 1-800-585-9396.
All right, just quickly again, before we bring in Gloria, according to the website of the National Black Catholic Congress, Catholics of African descent represent about a fourth of the world's overall Catholic population, 25%. Mm-hmm. But if you're in the United States here, and I know we have listeners around the world, but your experience may be very different because it's about 4% of U.S. Catholics would be in the category known as Black Catholics. So maybe you have questions for Gloria of her experience as a Catholic woman. We can talk about certainly women's issues. So many people accuse the Catholic Church of oppressing women, and we sometimes see this especially in Black communities where Planned Parenthood goes in and abortion clinics are set up and so forth. So any questions on this topic or your takes, 1-800-585-9396. Gloria Purvis graduated from Cornell University. She's got a bachelor's degree in science in human development and family studies. She has been involved and still is involved in a lot of very important positions. She has served as chairperson of the Culture of Life Committee and coordinator of the Young Adult Association at St. Augustine Catholic Church in Washington, D.C., and also on the Archdiocesan Pastoral Council for the Archdiocese of Washington. Gloria is currently a board member for the Northwest Pregnancy Center and Maternity Home in Washington and an advisory board member on the Maryland Catholic Conference's Respect for Life Department. And she serves on the National Black Catholic Congress's Leadership Commission on Social Justice. There's so much more we could say, but Gloria, all of your great work would take the rest of the show to lay out there for our listeners. So welcome. How are you?
I'm fine. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you just fine, yeah.
Yeah, let me just say the most important thing you can say I do is that I'm a wife and a mom.
Amen. Amen.
That's everything else, honestly. I'm so glad to join you guys today. Look forward to talking with you.
Thank you. Gloria, let me ask you this question because I've always wanted to ask you this, and now I'm going to put you on the spot on the air. How do you have that energy with Morning Glory? My goodness, when I listen to you, I mean, I tell you what, I could wake up, and if I'm like super tired, all I have to do is have like 1 minute of you, and I'm like, it's like a bottle of, vitamin C shot right in the arm. I love it.
You're so sweet and so kind. My secret weapon is my husband because I'm not at all a morning person. And in fact, when Brian Patrick came to me and said, "Hey, are you a morning person? I have this idea for this show." And I was like, "Mm-mm." And I was talking to my husband. I was like, "I can't do that. I like to sleep." And he was like, "Oh, no, I will help you. We have to see what God has planned here." And, we have a little girl. She's 5. And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." So it's really my husband helps me get up, and I just go. And then I guess I'm just a chatty, upbeat kind of person because, sister, I'm tired too when I'm in there.
Well, Well, you're definitely gifted at it. God bless you, and many, 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 many more years waking us up in the morning. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind of you.
Well, Gloria, I have another quick question. We have
Sure.
in our diocese in Phoenix, we have a wonderful Black Catholic ministry that is just beautifully thriving here in our diocese. But the interesting thing about it, and I wanted to ask you this too, I worked in the diocese for 25 years, and it wasn't until just a few years ago that I realized how big the Black Catholic ministry was.
Yeah.
Why is it that it's kind of not highlighted? It's not, brought to the forefront.
That's a great question. Sometimes I think people may be uncomfortable with the idea of Black Catholic ministry because they see it as like, why does that group have any special needs for ministry as opposed to anyone else wider in the church? And so I think that could be why the actual existence of the ministry is obscured. We still do have, actually, in the United States, if you go to certain dioceses, people can say, oh, the Black church is over there, where all the Black Catholics go. So we do sort of have this legacy of separate worship. I mean, you saw it, decades ago where you had an Italian-American church, you had the Polish church, you know what I mean? You had these ethnic enclaves, and they went to particular churches. And so you still have that in some dioceses with, the African-American community. And sometimes it's just, this is where traditionally African-American Catholics have gone to church, and that's where they still go to church, they worship, they fellowship together in those communities. So it could be just that.
Yeah, Gloria Purvis is with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and we're anticipating your phone calls, your comments, your takes on Black Catholicism. If you are an African American, a Black person, maybe you're not a Catholic. Maybe you feel that it's not a welcoming church environment. I don't know. Maybe that's been your experience. Perhaps you're just very, very vibrant and active and involved as a Catholic. 1-800-585-9396. Gloria used the word worship, and one thing I've always wondered is sometimes we get this. Maybe it's a stereotypical perception. You see it on TV and in movies and all this. When a Black congregation is worshiping, it's much more upbeat, and they're raising their hands and raising the roof. And the Catholic liturgy is, not quite as geared to that. So I wonder, is there any dynamic here where they maybe feel a little bit more comfortable in a different worship environment?
Well, let me push back a little bit on that assumption, because if you've ever seen Africans worship, it's extremely vibrant. I mean, one of the Dominicans that's on the show with me was telling me about one of his confreres that's over in a particular country in Africa, where he's like, if Mass is not at least 2 hours, the people will be insulted. And it's because Mass is the highlight of the week, and people walk for miles to go to Mass, and they go there to worship God, and it's a full body experience. So I think it could be more of a particular Western perception of the church. And I will even say, when I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, I went to a church that did not, and it was a historically African-American church, St. Patrick's. It was not this kind of gospel Mass. It was very what people, think typically a Catholic Mass would look like. It wasn't until I actually moved to the Washington, D.C. area that I experienced what some people call a gospel Mass, or even going to Franciscan University in Steubenville and experiencing a festival of praise. I guess they're,
right.
What do you call it, charismatic or whatever?
Right.
Sure.
So, it just depends. And I do think that some people, if they're interested in Catholicism and aren't Catholic, and they come from that background, that they want that particular worship style. But then I think they miss the point of Catholicism. It's not about how we feel at Mass.
Right.
We go there because we are worshiping God, and we give Him our honor, love, and respect. And to me, I could go to Mass anywhere, whether it's charismatic, whether it's even, no music at all, or if it's chant, or if
Latin Mass?
Latin Mass, which is, you know what, the Latin Mass in its spirit and intensity is so similar to a gospel Mass, in my opinion. And I know here in our diocese, Monsignor Charles Pope says the Latin Mass and he also is at a church where they have a gospel mass. And I said, how do you do both? And he says he experienced the same thing. The spirit and intensity of the people is so parallel that it's just the same. But nonetheless, I do think people, they want to have their drums, their bass, or whatever, and they think that is what makes Mass. And I'm like, no, what makes the Mass is the Eucharist, and we have to be focused on that. And so that's when, like, sometimes we get. I think people need to realize you don't come to church to be entertained. You don't come to church to pray or worship in only this way. You come to worship God as He is. And I would say to someone is, if the only Catholic church in town had bass and drums, would you leave the faith? No, because you know what's there is Jesus Christ. Would you leave the Catholic Church if the only church in your town didn't have whatever your preferred musical style or style of worship is? No, because you're there for Jesus Christ. And that's what unites all of us. And that's what we need to remember.
Well, we're going to have to talk about, Gloria, your on fire spirit, because your conversion story, so that you can share with the rest of us where that passion comes from. But before you do, we're going to take a quick break, because phone lines are filling up, and that's great. We're going to have some great questions, great discussion. That's how Take Two listeners do it. We kind of, move the show along and let the conversation develop. So you hear that music. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more with your calls and Gloria Purvis. We're talking about Black History Month, but we're talking about just celebrating being Catholic. So stay with us. We're going to take that quick break.
Hi, I'm Doug Keck, the host of EWTN's Bookmark, and I wanted to tell you about a new book, Praying with Mother Angelica, Meditations on the Rosary, the Way of the Cross, and Other Prayers. It's a new book that's out from Mother Angelica, and with me is Father Joseph Mary Wolf, our chaplain here. And Father Joseph, you knew Mother for many, many years, worked very closely with her, and you could appreciate this book and recommend it. What are some of the highlights, maybe a prayer you'd like to read?
I like it that it has her meditations on the mysteries of the Rosary, including the luminous mysteries, which were taken from her programs later, but also her meditations on the Stations of the Cross. And one of my favorite parts is her conversation with God. So it's like entering into her prayer. Mm-hmm. So here's one where Mother speaks about time, and it's more like a prayer. Life is so short, my Lord. I look at all my yesterdays, and they seem so hazy, while all my tomorrows are uncertain. The only time I really possess is this tiny moment, and it passes so quickly. It is a most precious gift in your hands, and I should look at it as I would a treasure.
Exactly, and as Mother always said about living in the present moment, and now is the moment for you to check out Mother's new book, Praying with Mother Angelica, Meditations on the Rosary, the Way of the Cross, and Other Prayers. You won't be sorry. It's a wonderful new book available right now. Order it today.
To get your copy of Praying with Mother Angelica, log on to our web store, EWTNRC.com, and type in item 80008, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
This is John Martinoni, host of Open Line Monday.
Hello, this is Archbishop Charles J. Chaput, the Archbishop of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
This is Jerry Usher, co-host of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Have a blessed Lent from all of us at EWTN Radio. We want to thank you for being with us here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. It is so great to have with us Gloria Purvis. She is one of the co-hosts of Morning Glory, heard 7 a.m. Eastern Time on EWTN Radio. And we are helping to bring Black History Month to a close at the end of this month by talking about Black Catholicism. There is a National Black Catholic Congress, and you can go on the internet and find them. And it is, I'll give the website in just a minute, but it is a wonderful organization that serves the needs and really helps to highlight the beauty of the Black Catholics and their involvement in the church. So I'll have that website for you in a minute. In the meantime, Debbie, we got some people on the line that want to talk to Gloria and share their takes.
We do. So we're going to go first up to Portland, Oregon, listening on EWTN Radio, on Modern Day Radio. I hope, is it Francois? Francois, is that you? From Portland, Oregon?
Yes, it is.
Did I pronounce it correctly, or did I totally not?
No, that's correct. That's correct.
Oh, good. Well, welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and Gloria Purvis. What is your take today on this wonderful topic that we're discussing?
Yeah, well, I would like to thank you first for having that on the agenda. It's not every day that you talk about black issue on the media. But I would like to go ahead and say that first of all, I am an African Catholic, and when I came to this country, it was natural for me to be Catholic. So I went to church every day. But I noticed that I would be very honest. I'm very faithful to the church. I love the church more than anything else, and I don't find that. The Catholic Church in America is very welcoming, especially to blacks. Well, me, it doesn't bother me because I grew up as a Catholic, so I know why I go to church. And why do we have to talk about black issue in the Catholic Church? Because they are Catholic like everybody else, right? Well, a lot of people are not even aware. I mean, when I went to school here, I learned a lot about the black history here in this country. A lot of Americans today are not even aware that for many centuries, black were not allowed. They were not allowed to worship along with other Americans, for example. So naturally, historically, they have been separated from other worshippers. That's why you have black church, because of the history that comes from that. And for me as a Catholic, I am very grateful to all the treasure that the church gives me, like the sacrament. Hello, am I still on the air?
Yes.
Yes,
We hear you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All
right. As a Catholic, I'm very grateful to everything, all the treasure that I have in the church, the sacrament, the mass, the devotional, everything. I mean, the church has a treasure. It has a wealth of help that it gives me to become closer to God every day, every single day. But at the same time, when I look at the black American who do not come to the Catholic Church, I mean, it saddens me because they are deprived from all the sacrament and from all the treasure that we Catholics enjoy in our spiritual life. And why is that? Some of them, they are being deprived from that for no fault of their own. They grew up knowing that Catholic does not, even though this has more segregation has ended more than 50 years ago. I mean, there's still some baggage that are being carried, and I don't see a lot of effort in the church to try to bring back black Catholics who were lost because of the segregation for many centuries here.
Okay, and Francois, hold on just 1 second. You've laid a lot out there, and I think Gloria, you probably got the kernel of what he's raising right now. So go ahead, Gloria.
And thank you, Francois, for calling in, and I appreciate your point of view. And it's interesting what you're bringing up. If you know much about the history of the National Black Catholic Congress, you will find that the founder, Daniel Rudd, who was born in 1854, I think. His dad was a slave, and yet both parents were Catholic. And at that time, of course, yes, there was a lot of segregation and hostility toward black people, and even within the church. But people like Daniel Rudd knew that Jesus was truly present in the church. And so while the, the evangelization of the black person in the Americas really then fell upon other black people, other black lay people, and that was the origin of the National Black Catholic Congress. And he started a paper called the American Catholic Tribune, and then American Catholic Tribune, which he used to write about the faith and evangelize people through writing. And so the truth of the matter is we still have responsibility to do that evangelization, right? We have responsibility to talk to other people within our families, our friends, with all around us about our faith, and invite people to come. And no, it's not always welcoming, so to speak. I was just at a church in D.C. over Christmas called Immaculate Conception Church, and they had a beautiful plaque in the back of the church commemorating the, shameful history that had happened in the church where black people were not allowed to sit in any pew that they wanted. They had to sit in the back of the church. And this is not an uncommon history in some churches in the United States. I know at St. Augustine Church, the pews in the front are the smallest because they used to be the pews in the back that were where the black people had to sit. But and sometimes that history obscures the doctrine. So people look at the experience of other human people who are broken and flawed and ascribe that brokenness and flawedness to the doctrines of our faith. And I'm like, no, that is not what we believe. But if you study what we actually believe and what our doctrines are, you'll know that it's true. And that itself is a call to all people. And so, yeah, it's an interesting thing how the enemy has come in and planted and sowed division among God's children. But I still have hope that we can go out and be, just like the apostles go out to all nations and preach and bring people in. And, that's going to be part of our struggle, right? Part of our goal. And when we get to heaven, we'll see how many other people have come with us as a result of our willingness to reach out and evangelize, despite, a difficult history and even current problems that we know the God we serve, and he died for all of us. So,
Francois, thank you. I just wanted to add, I love your take on this. And the reason I do is because there has been, discrimination. There have been shameless things perpetrated against blacks, certainly against a lot of other, people as well throughout the history of the world. It's the human condition that we sin, and it's really a tragedy. But what I love is what you were saying about the church has the truth and the sacraments and the devotions. And so in spite of many, many perhaps challenges or obstacles, you have chosen to, remain a Catholic and really pursue that with a great zeal. I'm very inspired by that. So I want to thank you for calling, Francois. We are going to get to a break here in just a couple minutes. Mario in El Paso, you'll be right after the break. But Gloria, to be quite honest, Debbie and I talked about this before this show. This is not necessarily a comfortable topic to address because, again, it is kind of saying, hey, there are these divisions. How do we kind of try to heal that? And there can be discomfort in talking about that. I just assume the church is universal. In an ideal world, we wouldn't have to have this conversation, perhaps.
Right? Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess it can be uncomfortable because it just is for some people. I don't know why I'm not uncomfortable talking about it. I'm just like, it is. This is what we face, and we need these sensitivities to people's hurts. And people have particular experiences, and their families have had experiences that have come to play. And it's almost sometimes like when somebody shares that with you, even though it may not be shared in a way that you feel is welcoming to you or whatever, that it's about what you're hearing there is the hurt behind what may be perceived as initially anger. What you're really hearing is the hurt behind it. And sometimes we just need to say, I'm sorry, and I love you, and I don't want to hurt you like that. Let's come together around this table and worship God together. And so it does require some willingness to listen, some willingness to, just be small, I guess is the word I want to say. Just be small and listen. And just say, I am sorry. I am sorry, and I welcome you, and I love you as a brother or a sister in Christ, and let's hold hands and go together to heaven. I don't know what else to say.
No, and you said it beautifully, and I think that's what Francois was really saying as well. That to wanting to be part of that welcoming community, and I think that's important for all of us to remember that because all sorts of divisions happen across the lines. I mean, Gloria, you and I know this as women. So a lot of times women feel like maybe sometimes they're a little out of place sometimes in the church. Well, what's our role? You know what I mean? So it happens. It happens. Or if you have a community that's very strong, like the Vietnamese community, or you get a strong community that comes into the parish, and they want to feel a part of it too. They want to feel welcome. So this is huge. This is a great topic. You hear that music? This is the one break, Gloria, that we have to take. You know it quite well. So we're going to take that break. When we come back, we're going to talk more. We're going to celebrate being Catholic, and we're going to really look into what it means in Black History Month. This is important, you guys. We got Gloria Purvis with us. Stay with us. GMA's Songwriter of the Year, Matt Maher, Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, and Father Larry Richards are coming to the Chaffetz Arena, St. Louis, April 23rd.
One Faith Experience is a unique, dynamic, full-day conference and concert event that will leave you re-energized in your faith, lift your spirit, and empower you to help set the world on fire for Jesus Christ.
One Faith Experience, Chaffetz Arena, St. Louis, April 23rd.
Tickets for this life-changing event start at just $15 and are available online at onefaithexperience.com.
Jesus had some pretty direct words about the poor. I'll sum them up for you. If you don't serve the poor, you will go to hell. Ouch, that stings. But those aren't my words, so don't kill the messenger. Read Matthew 25. Jesus' entire summary of the final judgment has to do with how we treat those in need. A heart that's unmoved by hunger, nakedness, homelessness, and thirst can't enter the kingdom. Thankfully, it's not too hard to do something about it. Go online and give regularly to your favorite charity that serves the poor. The internet has brought them to your doorstep. Carry gift cards to supermarkets and fast food places to give to the poor on street corners. And if you're able, join a local charity in a hands-on way. Getting to know the poor up close and personal reminds us what's most important in life and what's not. We need the poor more than they need us. This is Chris Stefanik from RealLifeCatholic.com on EWTN Radio.
It's new. It's Catholic. It's live from our studios at Christ Cathedral. Call Me Catholic with Peggy Normandin. A full hour of talk, interviews, and commentary on faith. Celebrating, exploring, and restoring our Catholic identity in a modern world. Call Me Catholic every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
All right, tomorrow on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, you're not going to want to miss it. Adam Bly will join us. He is a religious demonologist. A what? Well, he works for the Diocese of Pittsburgh, and he gets called upon by his own bishop and other bishops around the country to investigate possible spiritual demonic oppression and possession. He's participated in many solemn exorcisms, and he conducts training for priests, actually, as a layman, on how to perform the church's rite of exorcism. And we're not going to talk about all that, way up there stuff. We're just going to talk about, the show is titled, Can the Devil Hurt You? And we just want to have a very down-to-earth conversation about spiritual realities and what we can do to protect ourselves, to be in a state of grace, especially, Debbie, if people have kids, that they want to just make sure are, enveloped and just, surrounded by God's grace and blessing. So that's coming up tomorrow.
Well, and depending on how the conversation goes, Jerry, I would just caution parents, maybe just small children, maybe not to be listening to the show in case somebody asks a question that, because Adam is amazing, absolutely amazing. I understand, Jerry, that when he goes out to different communities and speaks, and we're going to have him as he's one of our keynote speakers at the One Faith Experience. And if dear listeners, if you want to go and get tickets, I'd hurry, onefaithexperience.com. But Adam's going to be speaking there. And I understand when he comes to communities, Jerry, there is a line like out the door to talk to him. So a lot of people have deep questions, and this is going to be a really interesting topic tomorrow. So don't forget to mark your calendars already for tomorrow's Take Two. Okay, so Gloria, we were talking right before the break about, discrimination cuts across all lines. And, I keep thinking about what Francois said. How do we... before we go to Mario, who's waiting so patiently in El Paso, Texas. Mario, hold on. I know you're listening. So how do we become a more welcoming community? I mean, I want to ask you that question.
It's so interesting you say that. I think, just treat people like they're your long-lost relative you're meeting for the first time. I mean, it's, hi, how are you? Glad to see you here. Come on in. Glad that you're at this parish. I mean, just how would you treat a long-lost relative? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Greet people, say hello, smile. Some of the simple things that you do, that we know how to make people feel welcome. Make eye contact, smile. It makes a world of difference. Number one, because you're recognizing their humanity and they realize you see them, that they are not invisible to you. Eye contact, smile, a nod of the head. if they're there for Mass early, you could say, welcome, so glad to see you. Welcome to our parish. I haven't seen you before. Glad you're here. Just simple things. It doesn't have to be, anything like, well, I'm not this or I'm not. Just welcome. Hi.
Right.
Glad to see you're here.
Right.
Simple.
Yeah, and the website, by the way, promised you for the National Black Catholic Congress is at nbccongress.org. Very easy domain to remember, nbccongress.org. All right, our number 1-800-585-9396. Mario, you get our Patience Award today in El Paso, Texas, listening to EWTN Radio on Sirius XM 130. Mario, welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi, hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, let me tell you what I was calling my experience here in El Paso, Texas. And let me explain the demographics. It's probably about 3/4 people of Hispanic descent, Latino, Mexican American, however you want to refer to it as. Maybe there's a 5% black community and then a Anglo community, about the other 20%. So growing up in El Paso, a border city, you didn't see very many black congregants in church. And so when we did see them, it was sort of a surprise. Now, contrast that with churches in Mexico, and I've been to a bunch of them in different cities. In Mexico, if you saw a black person in church, it was funny. It wasn't, you didn't say, hey, there's a black person. Really, we just looked at it as another Mexican with a little bit darker skin. And maybe because we had a shared experience. You have really two classes in Mexico, the super rich and then the rest of us. And of course, the people have a great devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe. So it was an easy kind of conversation to have when you talk about evangelization or reaching out to other people. That was never really a problem. But I want to contrast that with here in the U.S. side, and maybe it's because there's a collective sense of shame in our history in the Americas that when I see a black person, I don't generally go in and invite them and talk to them about what church they're going to, and then that's my fault because there's no evangelization going on. But in a sense, maybe there's those ideas of a collective sense of shame. Maybe there's a little bit of a fear factor because I don't have the same experience that my black brothers and sisters have with me when I'm in Mexico. And so there's that. And I'm thinking, what can we do to reach out? We try to make people feel welcome, but I'm thinking that maybe part of my problem, and I don't know, it might be with everybody else, I certainly don't think stand around and pray and say, God, help me reach out to people. I never do that. And maybe if I did that, I could be more welcoming or reaching out to people. But listening to everybody today, certainly gives me a chance to think about changing what I do and having a different sort of purpose, and not be kind of framed away by the history that we have in this particular country.
Gloria, what are your thoughts on that?
Well,
thanks, Mario.
Thank you. Mario, right? It's Mario. It's so interesting because in my experience, within, quote, African-American black ministry, we do have black people who are Latino. You've got people from Panama, the Dominican Republic. You got people from Mexico. I didn't even know in Peru that the La Limeña, the people who are also black like me. So it's an interesting experience when you're talking about also being within the Latino community. But I like how you say, is it that we have to have this shared experience here in this country to be able to converse with one another? Mario, I can tell you, if you said to someone, hello, I'm glad to see you here, welcome, that's all. That would break so much ice and make people feel like you're being authentic. There's also a part of it where if you come to a point where you have that closeness in a relationship with somebody and they were to share something with you, which again I said may sound like anger, but behind that anger is a hurt, just listen and just say, yes, this is, I didn't have that experience, but I know it must be painful or angering or whatever. Just listen sometimes and then just say, I don't know what we can do to heal that pain, but I'm willing to pray with you and be with you as we walk toward Christ. And that's it. Just listen. I would say don't discount, that was the experience. Don't try to find a different reason, because I think that hurts people in the sense that they're like, I'm an adult. I know what I experienced and how I perceived it, and to tell me it wasn't that is actually more alienating. So listen, be willing to pray with them, and be willing to say, yeah, I did not have that particular experience. I could imagine the emotion behind it, and I want to be with you as we walk toward the Lord. It does require some tenderness and sensitivity, and I'm glad you brought up what you said, Mario, about the experience for you being in Mexico versus when you come here to the States. I also think people don't know what it's like to go into a parish where no one else looks like you, and that might have been your experience going into a parish where everyone generally looks like you, talks to you, understands you, but you go into a parish where people don't look like you, don't know you, don't talk like you, and your experience of them outside the parish, might be a little different. So, for example, I know we had a commercial on, they were mentioning Deacon Harold Burke Sivers. He's a great friend of mine, and he was telling the story at a revival of how he was pulled over by the police. And the guy had him up against the car and was giving him a hard time until he noticed Deacon Harold's Notre Dame ring. And then all of a sudden, his whole demeanor changed. That is our experience. And everybody in EWTN knows Deacon Harold, knows he's a great guy. But his experience outside of the EWTN world where he's known is quite different. And so he shares that with other African-American men, black men in this country, and it's real. And so we just, understanding that also goes into play when you go into these parishes. You're like, how many of these people here, see me as an other, fear me, despise me? They don't know me. And so there's a little bit of that trepidation as well. So believe me, when someone smiles, someone says, we're glad you're here, that dispels a lot of that concern or anxiety in some cases.
Anything else, Mario, before we...
And keep that in mind because, like I said, part of the problem is just getting over our historical problems we've had in this country. But how you say it sounds like a very easy thing to do, and I will incorporate that because I think whatever gets us closer to God as one family is probably the best thing we can do.
Yeah, you know what, Mara, you'd be surprised how much that will go, just incorporate that. And it's going to take a lot of prayer because the enemy is going to work hard to keep us separated. And he's going to play upon hurts, pains, insecurities, mistrust, all that. But let's pray hard about it and go into it with open hearts and see what the Lord will make of our pure intention to try to come together and worship him.
Thank you, Mario, so very much. Thank you so very much for calling in and sharing that. You have really enlightened us, so that helps us see how the conversation gets driven in a positive way. And Gloria, we're going to be taking a break in just a moment, but you said something I just wanted to revisit, where you said the enemy is going to do everything in its power to separate us. We see that happening all the time in our church, all the time. Different groups will stick together. Different people of different ministries will stick together. The enemy wants us to be separated. And I've often said this. We're going to be playing in that sandbox in heaven someday all together. We're all going to be up there together, and there is, there's not going to be those divisions of, our culture and our color and our gender and there's going to be all of us as that body of Christ, as those communion of saints. And so the sooner we start practicing that now, my goodness, it just seems like it's going to be, you're a mom, this much easier transition, right?
Yeah. Right.
Amen.
I don't know how much time we have, but I was going to say, I embrace, people's heritage, and I find it beautiful. To me, it just shows God's artistry across humanity. And so I've gone to a Mass that was in Japanese. I've gone to Mass that's been in Spanish. I've gone to Mass that's in various languages across various cultures as I've traveled the world. And I'm just like, this is so beautiful to see how God's hand has worked across the various cultures and peoples, and I kind of like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's not a difference. Differences to be difficult. It's just the expression of God in those cultures, and yet what unifies us is the one faith.
Right.
So that to me is just so beautiful.
Amen to that. Well, Gloria, we wanted to talk to, we're going to skip the break because this is too important. Okay. So we're going to skip the break because we want to talk to you about a little bit. We're going to go to Allison in just a moment, but we want to talk to you a little bit about your conversion experience.
Oh, yeah.
So, but before we do that, so hold on to that. I just want you to get ready for our listeners. But Allison has been waiting so patiently in Chicago, Illinois. She's listening to EWTN Radio online. Allison, welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and Gloria.
Oh, thank you so much for taking my call. Hi, Gloria.
Hi,
I think I'm your number one fan. I absolutely love your show, Morning Glory, and I've seen you on Authentically Free at Last, and I watched those episodes too. And I just wanted to share a wonderful moment I had when I was at the mall collecting pro-life petition for signatures for a pro-life petition drive. I met so many wonderful people, but especially on my mind stayed one wonderful young man who happened to be black. But we connected because when he was talking about how pro-life it's just such an important aspect in his life. I just felt like that connection, and I don't believe he was Catholic, but I invited him to my Catholic church anyway. I gave him my name and number because, unfortunately, the parish that we go, we don't see a whole lot of Catholics who are black. And I don't know. I kind of wondered, why is that? And perhaps maybe because, we threw out our TV. We don't watch, cable and all that, so we don't really get like all the. I guess how the media portrays certain groups.
Yeah.
And perhaps it's because, they. I guess maybe that's a factor in a way. But I mean, I'm colorblind. I just don't, I mean, when I just hear someone talk about these the principles and values, which all for me come from, our Catholic faith, it's instant connection. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. And if perhaps maybe Gloria can kind of give me some advice as to, because what I'm thinking about doing is going to the Baptist church that's right across the street from our church, and just like sitting there and inviting folks over and kind of sharing with them.
You never know what an invitation will do. I had an experience at work, and I'll be real quick about it. When I was working in corporate America, it was Ash Wednesday. I went out for Mass at lunch, came back with ashes on my forehead. The manager of the office called a meeting and proceeded to make fun of me for wearing ashes in front of the entire office. Oh. And out of that experience, I went ahead and explained to her the purpose of these ashes and the significance of repenting, and that we were going to be dust and to turn away from sin. And from that experience, a young woman who was an immigrant from Jamaica came to me and said, I'd never heard of that before. And I was like, yes. And I was like, and would you come to church with me? And from that invitation, not only did she convert, but now she's had children, and her daughter is my goddaughter, and she's going to be confirmed this October. So you just never know when you take that chance, and it may come in a situation where it's uncomfortable, or how you respond to that. But turn that into an invitation to bring someone. You just never know. So yeah, I think your instincts are right to want to invite, and you did the right thing with that man in the mall. And you never know how the Holy Spirit's going to. That seed will grow and flourish in due time with that person's cooperation. So yeah, keep on inviting.
Thanks,
Anything
Allison.
else, Allison?
Yeah.
Got any other final thoughts, Allison?
Well, just that I kind of wanted to share. I had a favorite childhood book of mine. It's called The Bargain for Francis, and one of the little characters in there, it's a little badger. Her name's Gloria, and I've loved this book all my life. And if maybe she might want to read it to her gorgeous little baby. I saw a picture when she showed it when she showed a picture of her daughter on Authentically Free at Last, and maybe she could read it to her baby.
Oh, thank you. I would love to read that to Lourdes. And thank you so much for listening to Morning Glory. We love our listeners too, and it's great to get feedback. And thank you. I will look into that book. I would love to read it to Lourdes.
Thanks,
you.
Allison, for listening in Chicago, and call the program anytime. 1-800-585-9396. Gloria Purvis with us. We got about another 7 or 8 minutes. And
Okay.
Gloria,
Let me just tell you real quick my conversion if you want to hear it.
Absolutely.
Yes, we do. We've been
Okay,
waiting.
So I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. My parents are not Catholic, but they're very big on education, and the best place to get a great education in Charleston was Catholic school. So from 1st to 12th grade, my parents sent us to Catholic school. Now, it is the South. The schools are segregated. The school that I went to was a cathedral school. It was an all-black Catholic school, except for maybe like the principal and some of the administrators. And one day at school, we had a food fight during lunch. We were great kids. We cleaned it up. After lunch, we had religion class with the religious sister, who was also the principal, Sister Carmelita, and she was irate that we had done this, even though we cleaned the place up spick and span. And so we had to go through like a public confession. We had to stand up one by one and answer her question. Did you participate in the food fight? Yes, sister, I participated in the food fight, and you had to sit back down. Then she was like, this is unacceptable, children. We have to go over. I have to go over and pray, and I don't want to hear a peep out of any of you. So she took us all over with her to the cathedral church, because it was right across the parking lot from the school. We were in the lower church. There was adoration. Sister went over and was on her knees trying to work it out with Jesus, not to strangle us kids. I could see her little habits pushing around, and she was, really having a moment. And as I was sitting there quietly, while Sister was chatting with Jesus, while I was sitting there quietly, my body was consumed with fire. And it's hard to explain what it felt like. It didn't hurt, but I knew I was on fire. And at that moment, I came to know that what was there in the monstrance was real and was alive. And just that instant connection, it's very, very hard to describe, but I just knew. And I would say like a day or so later, Sister came back to our class, and she was like, okay, I got to take all the Catholics and get you guys ready for confirmation. And I went up to her and said, sister, I think I'm supposed to be a Catholic. And she was like, you go home and ask your parents. And so what I did was, because I'm a contrarian, I didn't go home and ask them. I went home and told my parents that I was becoming Catholic, and I was only 12 years old at the time. And I remember my mother said, oh, you want to be a Catholic? Okay. If you're going to be a Catholic, you're going to go to Mass every Sunday, every holy day of obligation. You're not going to eat meat on Fridays, and you're going to pray the rosary. And I was like, okay, bet. And she was like, okay, bet. And that's really kind of what happened.
That is beautiful.
Oh, that's beautiful, Gloria. Hey, thank God for that. In our last couple of minutes, Gloria, I just want to use this occasion of this conversation about Black Catholics to talk about what I think is just an incredible gift to the church today, the explosion of Catholicism in many African countries. But Gloria, as you know, coming from that, one of the great fruits is the many priests. I mean, they're just overrun with priests and religious, and we're the beneficiaries in this country. So let's talk just for a couple minutes about the great gift of the missionary priests that we're getting from many African countries.
Oh my gosh, it's fantastic, because these priests are so solid, and their belief in God is so strong, and their belief in the sacraments, I mean, it's just so strong. I could say, without throwing any shade at any of our American priests, one of the best confessions I've gone to was with this African priest, and I felt like my soul had just opened up, and he was a physician just pulling out the shrapnel of sin right out of my soul during confession. And it was just this kind of clarity, and this kind of, it's hard to describe it. It was just amazing, and it was beautiful. And we should be thankful that we have these men and women of religious that come here who are so on fire for the faith. And they've come from countries, in some cases, where, they could die for the faith. You know what I mean? And they come here and they see us with our being able to worship freely, and just really inviting us to do that and to truly incorporate our beliefs into our daily lives. I remember I went to World Youth Day in Toronto, and it was Cardinal, he's from Nigeria. I could see his face and can't remember his name. But he was talking about, somebody said, well, Cardinal, so far for us to go to Mass takes too long. And he says, we walked to Mass for hours to get there. He says, why don't you do like you do for football games, just tailgate your way to the Mass? And I just thought, what a wonderful answer, and what a wonderful perspective he brought that we Westerners, hadn't thought about. People like, oh, it's so hard to get to church. Or He's like, tailgate like you do for football games. And I was like, amen.
Right. Well, Gloria, I have to tell you, I can attest to what you're saying. We in Phoenix, we just love all of the vocations that come out of Africa and the priests that come over and serve in the Diocese of Phoenix. We are so blessed. One of them is a dear friend of Marty, my husband Marty and I's, Father Fidelis. He was actually on the altar when we got married. One of the priests. And I tell you what, I can totally confirm what you're saying, Gloria, because every time I'm with Father Fidelis, I feel like I'm floating. I feel like it's amazing because he has such a love for his family, a love for the faith, a love for all of us. And so, that's a whole good reason for us to really understand that the vocations, wherever they come from around the world, we've got to value these. We've got to really treat these priests very preciously because this is huge that they're bringing to us and serving us. Yeah.
And you know what? They aren't so much stained by the Western notions of like this whole transgender. They're like a man is a man and a woman is a woman and God is God. Very concrete, and they don't play around with that. They're like marriage is one man, one woman. A man and a woman is required for marriage. A child deserves a mother and a father. That is what is required. And so they don't have this sort of reticence around speaking to that kind of truth. They're just very direct and concrete in that way. And I appreciate that because sometimes we get wrapped up in our Western sort of political correctness and they just bring it right back to reality for us. And they make it very concrete. And I love that. And we need that sort of cold water in our face to wake us up to the truth of it.
Yeah, at the parish closest to me, there's a priest from Africa, and I tell you, during his homilies, he gets a little worked up sometimes, and he will quote chapter. He'll say, as it says in chapter and verse. He's going through the Bible like I'm going, wow, this guy really knows his stuff, and he's made a huge difference. Gloria, we've got to have you back on because there's so many.
I would love to.
Yeah, there are issues we didn't really talk about. Women. The treatment of women by the world and the HHS mandate and your pro-life commitment and all of that. So will you come back on the show again?
Oh yes, if you guys will have me and your listeners will have me, I would love to come back, and I would love to talk about women and the HHS mandate and the church and how beautiful the church is. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, well, see,
Let's
Gloria,
plan on it.
Yes, we do that on purpose. We ask you on the air so that you can't. Yeah, on air, so you can't say.
No, you just roll tape.
Yeah. Oh, bless your heart, Gloria. Thank you so much. And my takeaway, real quickly, is I'm just chuckling because I just felt that Allison was adorable, calling in and saying how much she loved Morning Glory and Gloria. And what cracked me up is I just can picture her in the back of a Baptist church. She has a ministry. Gloria, you're going to have to tell us how that's working for Allison. Jerry, your takeaway.
Yeah, my takeaway is the church, Catholic means of the whole. It means universal is kind of another way to put it. And I am so blessed, so thankful to God that He has started a church that exists today that everyone can belong to and be a part of. Tomorrow, Can the Devil Hurt You? Adam Bly joins us to talk about that on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Have a beautiful and blessed day.